Hey there, guys. Welcome to another episode of the MH Performance Podcast. I'm your host, Miles Harrison. And today we're going to be talking about the truth about stretching and mobility. So, the reason why I wanted to make this episode today is because I see a lot of people within the gym doing a lot of kind of like stretching routines. And they sometimes come to me with, I'm not getting the kind of results that I'm wanting. I'm always constantly feeling tight. So I wanted to kind of clear things up in this podcast and give you guys a little bit of a kind of understanding of why a muscle can feel tight and what we can do about it for long term. So let's get straight into it. So first of all, I want to clear the description between mobility and flexibility. If we think of flexibility as passive, so someone pushing us into a position, and mobility is us actively moving into a position. So if I give examples, so let's say, for example, like um, a seated leg reach is it's a passive way of getting lengthened through the hamstrings, and then an active reach would be an RDL. So that's the two kind of like descriptions between the two. Now, ideally, what we probably want in the longer haul, if we want a greater deal of mobility, actively being able to get into ranges and being strong enough to withstand them and move into them. So, going to the next thing is understanding what tightness is. Now, when we are tight, we need to understand that a muscle can feel tight even though it's not in a shortened position. And usually, the classic examples of when something feels tight is usually that the muscle is already in a lengthened position and therefore can't lengthen anymore. If you think about stretching a lengthened muscle even more, then what tends to happen is that you're just kind of beating yourself against a wall in the sense that you're not really going to gain any more length out of it, and you're not really going to fix the root cause of the issue, which is getting the muscle to shorten in original or get yourself in a better position where you could actually get some length back into the muscle. And the way to understand that is tightness is a perceived effort from the brain. It's more neurological than it is musculature. So what I mean by that is we perceive tightness as either what I tend to happen is either we go through a stretch or when a muscle is lengthened, we get a bit of a feedback loop. So within the muscle itself, there's almost these kind of things called muscle spindles. And with the tendons as well, there's tendon organs. And then think about it as they're kind of like little recoils that wrap around kind of the muscle. And they detect like stretch, but they also detect like the multitude of stretch, so how quickly it gets stretches. And what that feedback does, it goes back to the brain and says, right, muscles being stretched in this position, and then the muscle pretty much decides whether it's strong enough or it wants to stay in that level position. If it doesn't like that position, we tend to get that feeling stretch. And there can be a multitude of reasons why that stretch happens. One of them is obviously, like I mentioned before, the muscle's already lengthened, so therefore it can't stretch no more. So it's trying to protect itself. The other one is fatigue. If a muscle is fatigued due to, let's say, for example, it's not strong enough to create the force that we're asking it to, or it's fatigued due to the task that we've done previously, what it will do is it will pretty much contract it back into a shortened range so it can protect that muscle even more. So with knowing that, we need to change that feedback from the brain. We need to make sure that we're putting ourselves in positions that allows us to change the feedback from the brain. And certain muscle groups that we tend to have generally get a little bit more focus in this kind of like tight ranges. So calves are a really good one. So usually when people do a squat, for a good example, most of the times they'll try to get into a bottom of a squat and they'll say that my calves are really, really tight. And it's not so much that the calves are really tight, it's just the calves were already lengthened beforehand before actually going into the bottom of the squat. This is because usually people carry a lot of their center of mass forward. So in order to get the muscles to shorten again, what we need to do is give them something that can cue them to push their center of mass backwards. So this could be, for example, a heel lift. So most people, when they feel like they got tight calves, they'll put like a little heel wedge or a ramp underneath their ankles. And what that does is by giving a little bit more of a push forward, the brain perceives as if we're going to be falling over, and what it does is naturally shifts your body weight backwards. And then from there, we then shorten the calf. So when we go back into a squat, the calves can lengthen again, and we can get to a much deeper squatting pattern. So changing our center of mass as well. It's going to be also a big predictor in also how we also pretty much change the range of motion when it comes to muscle lengthening as well. So what does that mean for when it comes to things like stretching and also things like foam rolling? Do they not do what they say they do? Do they not stretch the muscle out? Do they not get tension out of these muscle knots? And the answer is not really. Yes, stretching and foam rolling have shown to increase range of motion. But again, that's from the perceive of stretch feeling within the brain. Not so much that is actually changing much structure going on as well. So it's a good key thing to remember that. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't work. It can be used as a tool to make sure that naturally we can help ourselves get into range of motion. But in order to get long-term results, what we need to do is we need to make sure that we're strengthening ourselves within longer ranges of movements and loads of different positions, different plays of movements. So whether that's going forwards and backwards, lateral, rotations, we need to make sure that in order to gain range of motion and keep that range of motion to mobility, we need to strengthen in all these planes of motions and make sure that we're constantly using them on a regular basis. So yes, guys, so that's the kind of like the understanding around stretching and mobility. Hope you guys found this episode useful. I am starting to make also as well newsletters on a weekly basis as well that cover this as well from a kind of different way. If you guys found this episode useful, make sure to rate 5 stars on Spotify and make sure to share this around because it really does help me out. And if you have any other episodes, titles or ideas that you would like me to do, then just drop me a message. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the MH Performance Podcast, and I will see you all in the next one.